From dating to relationships, from sex to love, from Christianity to politics, from darkness to light, you have now entered into the real zone. Welcome to Conversations with Trent, where no topic of conversation is safe from discussion. Now, here he is, Mr. Epic himself, Trent Williams.
What's going on? What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another podcast with Conversation with Trent and Friends, right here on the Taylor Kennedy Television, Taylor Kennedy TV. That's right, folks. We're actually in over 200 countries. Fire Stick, Apple TV, all that good stuff. So welcome everybody. We're talking about generational trauma. Generational trauma. We have our resident life coach, trauma coach specialist, Coach Dee, and the lovely Shann. So we'll be transferring all the questions and everything to the trauma coach. 1 second, let's bring him in. 1 quick second. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Can't call him, might spoil it. I'm enjoying this fall weather here in New Orleans. Shannon says not fall weather because it's like 80 degrees, but
no, that's not like fall weather, is it?
It's 80 degrees with a cool front, so that's the cool front is always kind of special for us folks here in Louisiana.
That's not cool, sir. Like, 80 degrees and you're putting sweaters and hoodies on. I'm like, please talk to me when it's like minus 80 and then we can talk.
Exactly. You know what though? The coldest weather I've experienced, Michigan, of course, but over in Canada, it's brutal.
So it's not as cold as it used to be, thanks to global warming.
Exactly. So let's talk about generational trauma. Actually, Shannon, you guys brought up on the latter part of the show on last week, and thought that was quite interesting. So I did some digging, and we did a show on that last year before you came aboard, Dee. But I know we're going to go actually dig into a little deeper because that's your specialty. So I'm very excited about digging into that. But for the folks, is generational trauma real? It's a real thing. Yes, it is. Generational trauma is an event that began decades prior to the current generation and has impacted the way the individual understands, cope with, or heal from. I'm a witness to that. I am a witness to that, but we're going to let Coach Dee take over on that one. Go ahead, Shannon. You want to welcome everybody in?
Oh, yeah. So thanks for joining us. Looks like Mark is our first one on. So I'm interested to see what Coach Mark has for us tonight. He says, Grand Rising Melanated People, greetings to the Princess panel, Coach Dee, and I guess I'm video coordinator, Miss Charlie. And
What up, Slash? What up?
Hey, Tammy, welcome. She just joined. She just hopped on with us.
Hey, Tammy, how are you? Hey, Tammy, really appreciate you always supporting the daily quotes and all that good stuff. So I look forward to pushing them out every morning, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So generational trauma. Yes. What you got for us, Coach Dee?
All right. So there's different types of intergenerational trauma. So you have to understand what it is first. So simple trauma describes a single circumcised traumatic event, such as an assault, an accident, etc. Complex trauma occurs when a person experiences a series of repeated traumatic events, or when there's a new, unique traumatic event. So that's like soldiers going to war. It's constant repeated traumatic events. So complex trauma early in life can damage multiple aspects of a child's development, and it may involve entire families in instances of like violence, addiction, or poverty. Right. So when it comes to intergenerational trauma, we have a couple of different types. We have historical trauma, which refers to traumatic events or experiences that are shared by a group of people within a society, or even an entire community, ethnic or national group, such as widespread effects. For instance, now the hurricane, where it's wiped out entire towns in Florida, that would now be considered a historical trauma. Jim Crow historical trauma, the Holocaust, the events going on in Ukraine, the potato famine for Irish people, and all these different things can manifest as substance abuse, suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, anger, violence, difficulty emotional regulation. So historical trauma combines with intergenerational trauma.
Gotcha.
And
I was reading that. I was kind of confused on that one, so I'm glad you cleared that up.
Mm-hmm. So now intergenerational trauma is trauma that gets passed from those directly experience an incident or subsequent generations, may be given a traumatic event that affects the individual or multiple family members, and then it gets passed down line to line. And it can be a large community, cultural, racial, ethnic, or other groups or populations. Like an instance of generational trauma within the Black community. How many times have you moved off the sidewalk when a white person is coming? That's a trauma people don't even think about because it's become so normalized. Right? Because that meant of yourself in prior Jim Crow days, that kept you alive.
Gotcha.
Right? And
I understand that.
Yeah. And so when it comes to parenting, the trauma's effects on parents get passed down to the children by parenting styles. Survivors of trauma may face challenges when their parents, including the difficulty in creating healthy emotional bonds to their children, healthy attachments. Because think of people who have survived trafficking or, for instance, the Holocaust or war, where families have been ripped apart. So it can be very hard to get that emotional attachment back because there's you get numb, you become what's the word I'm thinking of? Oh goodness, I forgot. You try to avoid the trauma itself. So when you've been ripped apart from your family once, you try to avoid bonding with them to avoid that feeling of getting ripped apart again. Right. So then you see, then you self-isolate, and there's like you have a low tolerance for any type of stimulation, and they try to avoid basically being around their children. Right.
Interesting.
So that and then you have the effects on the children. So here's where it gets interesting. So there's a lot of terms that are used that are actually trauma. So you hear people talk about, I survived, so I'm not, my kids have to survive too, right? Where even though it's been hard for you, theoretically you should make it easier for your children coming along. Right. But a lot of people, and you'll see it like on social groups and everything, well, I lived through it, they can live through it too. That's actually a trauma response. Just because you survive through something hard doesn't mean everybody else has to survive to the same thing. Right. Our goal as good human beings is to make sure that other people don't have to go through what we've gone through. Exactly. Right. So we have like children need to stay in a children's place. Right. So people take children's voices away from them, which is a trauma response, because in the old days, especially within our community, children had to be seen and not heard, because children who were seen may be taken away. They may be beaten, they may be killed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas nowadays, children don't have that. It's within your family itself, you're not afraid of them being sold off, hopefully, unless there's trafficking going on. That's a whole different conversation. But within a healthy family, that's not a worry. So children have a voice, and a lot of families who've undergone trauma remove that voice from the children, and then it becomes the children become an extension of them instead of separate human beings. Exactly. 1 second, Dee. We got a couple more folks coming through. Okay.
Yeah. So good evening, Lanye. She just joined us. She said hello. Hope everyone enjoyed their weekend. And Martine, our favorite Detroiter, is back. So hi, Martine.
Good
Welcome
stuff.
back.
Good stuff. What's up, Lanye from Cubs Couch?
So tell us, Coach Dee, what are some of the symptoms that we might recognize, or ways in which generational or intergenerational trauma manifests itself?
Great question. Thank you for asking that. So let me see. I have all kinds of notes because I geek out on this, so I need to keep myself I need to keep myself focused. All right. So within families, you'll see a disconnection. You'll see a denial of any trauma. You'll see detachment, distance, impaired self-esteem. And that comes from minimizing their own life experiences. Trauma bonding or emotional connection between abusers and their targets. Neglect, abuse, violence, anger, substance addiction. And substance addiction could be anything. It could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be food, it could be gambling, it could be shopping, any type of addiction that helps, that people use as a comfort to fill that void.
So let me ask you a question. Speaking on trauma, generational trauma, as far as like one bad decision could actually cause and start a trauma, correct, within the family.
What do you mean by one bad decision?
Meaning, let's just say, like, for my situation with the Four Horsemen book. You've read that book. The decision my father made, and I've had conversation with friends over the years about how my siblings were affected, as well as but I handled it a little better. Go ahead.
Excuse me 1 second, sir. So, for the folks who haven't read the book, I think you should elaborate on what decision he made so we can have some context.
Well, actually, in the Four Horsemen book, Big Will actually pretty much busted up his family and moved on and went on with another family. So it was four boys. It was four boys in the family, father and mother, and pretty much typical man, cheated and went on with his life. So kind of like broke a real good family up, like a solid family. Was structured, everything was structured, everything until that one bad decision, everything went chaotic. So like I said, when I had conversations over the years and over this, different platforms and speaking in the country and out of the country, and people would ask me, well, why in the book your brothers handle that trauma a little different?
Right.
And for me, I'm always saying, I have no idea, but I just dealt with it a little different.
Well, we all handle trauma differently. How you handle trauma versus how I handle trauma versus how Shann handles trauma is all going to be different based on our own individual person. And one of the biggest traumas to kids is parents.
Right.
Like whether it's how they discipline, how they interact with them, how they bonded with them. When it comes to relationships between the parents and so divorce in itself is traumatic, but here's where it gets interesting. So you can divorce and then co-parent. And if they're co-parenting healthily, there's not as much as a traumatic response as if one parent just ups and leaves. But an absent parent is better than a parent who is present but not present.
Right.
And that's in that situation, that's the way it was. He wasn't absent. He'd take care of business, take care of the family, all this stuff. But just like you said, he was present, but he was absent.
Yeah. So if you have a parent that's there, that's not participating, not taking care of, not in touch with their child, that's actually more detrimental, because then that child will ask, well, they have all this time for all these other people. Why don't they have time for me?
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
So I'm sorry, Coach Dee, go ahead.
That's all right. Go ahead.
So I was going to say, we've got a couple of comments. I think Martine had a question here for us, and she let us know. Oh, she's baking banana bread too. Oh, nice. Lanye says she needs to get her hands on those books. So I think that's a sign for you, maybe some subliminal message for, so to speak.
Technically, Lanye had the author in her presence.
Look, Lanye, I don't know. But it's almost 2 years and I'm still waiting on one, but that's okay. That's okay. So Martine says, can generational trauma be when families cannot let go of one another, even if they don't truly get along? And she also gave an example of what she said, moms treating their sons as if he's her man, calling on him all the time, no matter where he is. That contribute to trauma. As far as the parenting styles, when I think we've seen those mothers who kind of make their sons the man of the house, their man, so to speak.
Yeah, well, making the son as the don't worry, I will get to that, Mr. Marine. Don't even start, because I will warn you, today is not the day to play games with me, because I've studied this for years. So when it comes to making children like the man of the house, that is a trauma because it doesn't allow the child to be a child. So now when we talk about mama's boys, here's the interesting thing. So people love their boys more than they love their girls. Studies have shown, yeah.
That's interesting.
Just gender wise, they will be a lot harder on their girls than they ever will be on their boys. So what happens is the girls end up getting a lot more responsibility early versus the boys end up being allowed to be children longer. So there's good things and bad things to that. The good things is that they get to be children, but the bad thing is there becomes when they become adults, because they haven't been given as much responsibility, and then you see the whole weaponizing competence. I can't do this. I need my mother to help me with this, blah, blah, blah. So there's a very tight balance that has to be made on responsibilities and still allowing to be children.
Yeah, you know what I just thought about when you mentioned that, because that's true, and I can attest to that. I'm the eldest. My brother is the youngest, and I was probably dealt with a lot harsher and get made to be more responsible at an earlier age than he was. And, and I think about, and it's kind of weird because we want our men, right, to be the ones that are the providers, the ones that are the leaders, but we're not putting them in a position to be responsible or learn responsibility at a younger age. We're teaching our women or our girls how to operate outside of their feminine energy, so that when they are old, when they, are ready for a relationship or marriage or whatnot, sometimes it's harder to allow a man to come in and be the man, so to speak.
Yeah. So you're completely right. And what we should be doing is less responsibilities for our girls and more for our boys.
Right.
Because the boys aren't getting enough responsibilities and the girls are getting too much. The girls are raising their siblings.
Yes.
Which is an intergenerational trauma. People will be in denial all they want, and you will all get mad at me, but this is it. And let's bring Mark's comment up so we can discuss that, please.
He said, so all hate mail goes where, Mr. Epic?
All hate mail goes directly to dlayler@gmail.com.
I will gladly I will provide the studies for it.
Mark said, let's keep it a bean. Black children are still being targeted for the same things mentioned, Coach Dee. A child's place can be interpreted as different things. Relating to a child has levels. Part 1. Oh, so we're going to have another part. Okay.
So part 1, relating to a child has levels. No, it doesn't. Adults put levels on children because adults want to keep children. They do what's called child abuse. So children are not an extension of us. Children are their own separate human beings with their own facts, thoughts, and opinions. People don't like the fact that children have their own thoughts and opinions. Right?
I could agree with that.
And people will do things like, instead of asking a child what they want for supper, they will give them food. And when they don't eat it, they will get mad and tell them you have to eat that plate. However, if somebody did that to you as an adult, you would be mad as heck.
You know what's so funny? My stepmom used to.
Think about that.
Exactly. My stepmom used to cook squash and succotash, and I hate it.
Ooh,
and still to this.
God, that's so good.
What?
Especially if you make a casserole out of it.
No, negative.
You just
my brothers,
right.
My brothers and I, till this day, we hate cornbread, succotash, and all the squash and all that foolishness. We hate that stuff.
Do you think
we're forced to eat it?
Do you think you actually hate it, or do you associate it with her, which causes you to hate it?
Nah, I just didn't like it. I just did not like it. I didn't like the taste. I didn't like anything about it. And I wasn't by myself. I wasn't on that island by myself. My brothers hated that stuff too.
Yeah. I don't eat lentils because we're Catholic and every Friday we had to eat.
But we would literally be sitting at the kitchen table for hours like the plates will be left there. Be like, shit, who gonna eat this? So it was our punishment to sit at this table, and hey, man, at the end, I mean, as long as we stuck together, all that food got thrown away.
A lot of food issues in adults go back to when you were children.
Right.
A lot of people's food issues when they're adults, and it goes back to children because it goes back to one being forced to eat things you didn't want to eat.
Right.
Being made to clean your plate.
That's right.
And being told that you have to eat this, you're going to get big and strong, or if you keep eating like that, you're going to get fat and lazy. All of this stuff goes back to food when you're a kid.
Right. So now look at us. We cleaning our plate, and now we just big. We ain't strong. We just big.
Right. Exactly.
Well, hey, speak for yourself, because I'm not big. I'm a whole snack over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's all kids understand a lot more than adults give them credit for.
Yes.
Adults think kids are stupid. You know what I mean? Like I have an 8-year-old who discusses things by the observations that he has made. So, for example, Friday he got in trouble because he followed through a dare and said something he shouldn't have in class, and the vice principal called me. So the vice principal told me he asked him, would you jump off a bridge? If your friends jump off a bridge, would you jump off? And I giggled, and he's like, you already know he asked me questions about that. I said, yes. So Xavier said, why did they jump off the bridge? How high is the bridge? And was there water there?
Sounds about right.
Because my son needs information, because he's always been given information. He's been allowed to ask questions, right? So if you want to have a conversation with him, you need to bring your conversation communication up, because these kids, when I talk about Gen Z and Gen Alpha, these kids have emotional intelligence. They're not playing the games that we had to put up with when we were little. They will ask questions.
We got a couple. Not to cross you up, Dee. We got a couple of comments. These guys are engaging, so they want to have this conversation with you.
So we were talking about the books, and so Lanya, I guess she's asking me if you're hoarding. I guess if you're hoarding the books, but you know, Lanya, he brought all the books to St. Louis, so
I sure did.
I don't know why he didn't specifically set one aside for you, but you know, again, I'm just hosting the show for a whole year, and I still don't have one. But you know, that's neither here nor there. I'm not complaining. Yeah. So, Lanya, so she said her mother-in-law treated her husband like her man.
Wow.
Wow. So, and it's on an episode of Cup's Couch. We'll have to go and look at that.
Okay. I'll just take a look, because there, and here's where it gets interesting. So what some people may deem treated as their man may be normal in some families, depending on how close the family is. So I know, like, in my family, you could call like a cousin or a nephew to come over and help you if you needed help.
Right.
And they would come without a doubt. Whereas some families, that's deemed weird, and why would they do that? So it depends on the family dynamics of how close that family is and how healthy that family is. So if you have a family that's healthily bonded, then asking somebody to come over to fix something is not an issue.
Right.
So now it depends on how often they would come over and where they're putting their priorities. If they would put their priority over that, like say for instance, they had something to do at home and then somebody called them and they dropped everything to leave, that would be unhealthy, because they've just put in their family second below the secondary priority that came in.
That's interesting.
Right.
Looks like Mark came back with a number 2.
He says we can teach a child to play chess, but they will only play other children collectively. Plus, they have to relate to other kids in social settings. Being we didn't grasp adult understanding until 21 and up.
I talk to kids who know that if you don't get enough pay, you don't get food. Kids understand. Kids understand when their parents aren't working, there's no lights. Kids understand that it costs money to buy clothes. Kids understand a heck of a lot more than people give them credit for. So when it's almost you're insulting children's intelligence when you tell them that they don't grasp adult understanding until 21. Most adults don't grasp adult understanding until 21. So I can tell you, I know 12-year-olds who know more about what's going on in the world than I do 40-year-olds. I talk to these kids on a regular basis. You know what I mean? These kids know what's going on. They are not stupid and don't ever think that they are, because they're children.
Right. You know what I noticed though, when you guys actually speak on topics with kids and whatnot, you and Mark actually go at each other, because you guys have 2 totally different opinions on the upbringing of a kid.
Well, because I've studied child psychology for years, and this is what I do. I teach about conscious parenting on a daily basis to hundreds of people. And I have the proof. When it comes to my own child, I can see the results of what I do. So you can talk to me all day about what you can't understand, and I will tell you right off the bat that they understand a heck of a lot more. If they didn't, if kids didn't understand what was going on, they wouldn't receive trauma from their behaviors of their parents.
All hate mail goes directly to Coach Dee at dlayler@gmail.com.
Oh, we haven't gotten good yet. Wait till I tell you that beating them is a trauma.
Uh-oh.
So Lanye said when we were talking about our not making our boys responsible and making the girls more responsible. So she said she attested that. She said she babied her youngest son, but all three of them were spoiled rotten. She created muscle. Yeah. And Martine says that we always used to say children are little people. And Lanye said a black man who doesn't like cornbread. What the hell? I know, Lanye. I don't know.
I don't eat cornbread. I just don't do it.
You just haven't had made right. That's all.
So Martine says our cousin's mom made us sit at the table all day because we don't tell her no thanks to a serving of tomato soup.
Oh my God!
Hang on.
But yeah, how often she tomato soup now? Oh,
what was your?
Yeah, forcing kids to sit and eat a meal. You wouldn't force yourself. Like if I went over to your house, would you go, here's some tomato soup, you're not getting up from the table until you eat it?
Right.
You would ask me if I want it.
Wow.
People don't realize what traumas are. So people think trauma is something that is violent. There's a lot of things that happens is a lot of behaviors that are passed down from generation to generation cause trauma that people don't realize that it's like a million paper cuts.
Exactly.
Right? Like something as simple as say a child wants blue sneakers. We're not even talking about a brand or anything like that. They just want a blue sneaker. And you tell them, no, you're only getting white sneakers. Which, like, why would you just say you're only getting white sneakers when the blue sneakers cost the same amount as the white sneakers? And they've only asked for blue sneakers. If I go shoe shopping, I buy the shoes I want.
Right. You know what's so funny? It's funny that you know, we talking about this trauma and all this other stuff, right? I was speaking with my brother the other day, and he was telling me how he was telling one of his friends that he was telling my uncle that my father, my uncle watches the podcast, well, by the way. He says you guys are great. But he was talking about how my dad used to always call me his lawyer. And my other brothers would actually go along with everything my dad said, or they'll just go along with it. I was the youngest of four, and I was always questioning him. Like, why would I have to do this? Or I was the negotiator for him. Anytime it was time to get something or go after something or try to, divert a whooping, they would actually turn to me to try to negotiate with this guy.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you would say that because it's four of us, and we actually dealt with different traumas, totally different.
Yeah. Like think of the little things your parents have told you over the years that if we go, when it comes to people and how they interact as adults, you have to go back to the root of the issues. And 9 times out of 10, the very basic root of the issue goes back to childhood.
Right.
And go ahead.
Go ahead. We got these folks are piling up. They got questions for you. Dee, go ahead.
Yep. You want to go ahead with the questions?
Yeah. So Mark said, yes, children have improving thoughts and theories, born into a world of sin, having to be taught and experience right from wrong. A young lion doesn't hunt or know how to protect the pride. # Samba Part 3. Okay. And then Tammy, back to the whole thing about when we were talking about having to be forced to sit at the table. So Tammy says she still has to clean her plate, so she understands. I get it.
Like how many people have guilt over not finishing a meal?
Yes, I do.
You hear that your mother's voice or your father's voice in your head.
Don't waste food. Cost money.
Right.
Those are traumas. Like it's. Sorry,
what is this, Mark?
I get distracted. Yeah, I'm turning his comments off.
He says one child isn't Doogie Howser, Little Stevie Wonder, or Kobe Bean, whether yours or mine. The exception is never the example. Part 4. Okay.
Do you want hundreds of examples, sir? Because I'm not talking about one example. I said that my proof is I talk what I talk, I walk too. So that's what I'm saying when it comes to my son is my example of when it comes to what I'm talking about. When we talk about trauma in families, so let's look at the traumas that occur that people don't want to talk about. So
Let's go. That's exactly what I want to go.
You'll have the pedophile in the family. Everybody and people, instead of using the word pedophile, they'll talk about the touchy-feely aunt or the touchy-feely uncle. That's a pedophile. And then you'll have parents who will, knowing full well that that person has assaulted them, will still put their children in presence of that person.
In that space, correct. In that same space. Yeah.
That is an intergenerational trauma. The parents denying that children have been assaulted and saying, we don't talk about that. We don't air our dirty laundry in public to avoid a child going to the police or therapy. That's intergenerational trauma. You've now passed a trauma on to your child. Like when we talk about racism and systematic oppression, there's a lot of things that we behave within the Black community that go back to slavery, like the crossing the street, the not making eye contact with white people when they're walking down the road, how we treat our children, right? So everybody talks about spare the rod, spoil the child. The rod, because I have a biblical studies degree, is actually not for beating the child. It's for guiding. It's a shepherd's rod that's supposed to guide the sheep. It's not for beating them. You don't beat sheep. You discipline them through communication and example. And then this is where all the hate mail will come from. Well, I got beaten. I'm fine. Well, no, you're not, because you think it's okay to beat little children. If I went to your job and you made a mistake and I slapped you upside the head, what would happen?
You get fired.
You get slapped back.
You would get slapped back.
I'm just saying, you don't get slapped back. Just
as Inglewood said.
Somebody would call the cops and you'd be charged with assault, right? So if I'm 51 and I'm slapping another 51, it's assault. If I'm 51 and slapping a 2-year-old, why is that considered discipline? It's not. It's abuse. You are causing trauma upon that child because you are now teaching them that love equals violence.
I had to kind of agree to disagree a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Only because now my parents I got spanked. I got spanked as a child, but I've never had to physically discipline my own children. Like they have no idea what it is. And it's not that I didn't want to, I just never had to. I think my parenting and communication style with them, was a lot different than, I know it was a lot different than my parents. And I think they only knew what had been done to them and taught them what their parenting styles were. By the time I came along, I realized and understood that you don't always have to physically discipline. And also physical discipline does not necessarily mean that you're always correcting them. It depends on, for me, what their love language was, right? So physical discipline may not affect them the same, more so than me taking something away from them, or more so than me not giving them the certain affection or words of affirmation that may mean more to them than having I guess that physical aspect of it. But I mean, I don't judge people who do. I don't feel like I just never had to. Doesn't mean that I wouldn't have. Like I've popped my nieces on their hands when they've done something, but for me, I don't feel that it made me someone who had to be violent towards my own children or shied away from it. I just never had a reason to become physical with them in that aspect. So I don't know. Is that something like, am I missing it? Like, I don't know.
So what if I told you this, that research has long underscored the negative effects of spanking on children, social emotional development, their self-regulation and cognitive development. There's research that shows that spanking or hitting children alters the children's brain response in ways similar to severe maltreatment and increased perception of threats. So when you spank them or hit them, you actually put them into a flight or fight response, which is primal. Because basically, if somebody's starting to hit them, to protect yourself, you automatically go into a fight or flight. What happens is when you do it to children, they have no outlet to leave. they can't leave. Like, think about the trauma of having a child go pick a stick that you're going to hit them with. Right? Mm-hmm. That is trauma. I don't care what anybody says. It has been proven. I never understood that concept. It has been proven scientifically by looking at children's brains how that affects them. So this is why you have kids who have anxiety, adults who have anxiety, adults who have who cannot self-regulate, because when it comes down to it, they were never given the option to self-regulate at any time.
Maybe that's how it manifests itself.
Hey, it's 36 after. It's 36 after the hour. Let's let it breathe.
You don't get to go to commercial. You don't get to dictate the commercial, but that's my job, sir. No, I'm just playing. Go ahead. And when we come back, because I don't want any hate mail, I need y'all to pull back and let me get to the comments. Okay.
Good stuff.
I don't want no hate mail tonight.
I will accept all hate mail.
We'll be right back after the break, folks.
Thanks for tuning into Conversations with Trent. We will be right back with more conversation after these commercial breaks.
Check out the creative work of the author Trent Williams of www.taylorkennedymedia.com. Chapter of the Delta gives us a peek at his life-changing events. And if that's not enough, Trent tells you more about his brothers and his life through memoirs in his book, The Four Horsemen. His blogs and daily stimulating quotes are published in his book, Life's Little Addiction. And when you have a need of some human coaching of life and relationships, take a look at Conversations with Trent, Volume 1 and 2, and Conversations with Trent, Limited Edition. You will find his works available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all online book retailers.
Welcome back to Conversations with Trent. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're online and want to be a part of tonight's topic, you can do that by dialing 347-324-5327. Press the number 1 to get into the queue so that your voice can be added to tonight's conversation. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right, folks, and we're back. Good stuff. Talking about generational trauma here. On the Conversation with Trent and Friends, and Coach Dee is actually going in. She's going in on this topic. This is her thing. This is her. She's certified in trauma coaching and what have you and whatnot. So good stuff, man. Good stuff. Getting great information here. That was the Tabs Edible Creations ad, along with the Taylor Kennedy had, of course. But those overload cookies and infused wonderful cakes. As you can see, the array of boxes I have here. Tabs at creation.com. Good stuff. Good.
So let me get to the comments here. So Lanye had a question that's just to keep in mind for you, Coach Dee. So if I'll give it to you, I'll read it and then hold on to it for a sec. She says, I wonder if this falls under generational traumas but she doesn't negotiate or debate with kids. So I think we were talking about kids being in a kid's place. And she said, my mom used to tell us she was the ringmaster. We were the clowns. She ran the show and we ran around on the stage because she allowed it. She said, our family is a true circus. Okay. Ooh, and Martine says, yeah, she said, right. Our mom never responded with, because I said so. So I take it, Martine, your mom basically treated you guys kind of just like little people, not necessarily thinking that you didn't understand things based on your age or that you didn't value or your thoughts weren't valuable. Lanye, you know what, Lanye? I think our families are the same. She says, and you know what they say, give a clown a stage and they'll perform. Yeah, I've heard that. I have heard that. Let's see, Martine, I'm trying to get to your next one here. She said, she said her mom spoke with us clearly and in detail. She said our dad passed when we were young. He was mean and fussed a lot and did his own thing, didn't want anyone in his way.
Right.
Yeah. Wow, Tammy. She was saying, I asked her about, whether or not the whole clean your plate thing traumatized her. And she said, yes, and now I'm paying for it dearly. She said, I've always said I was traumatized when it came to food. That still affects me 50 years later.
Wow.
Yep, I get it.
There's your proof.
Mark said parents aren't perfect and some are on the job training. Some were raised with generational trauma traits, whether eating or having a choice of shoes. That's how we were raised, right or wrong. Martine says she didn't beat her children. Lanye said, I never went into deep detail with my kids. I said what I said and I was done. I make no excuse for myself. I hear you.
And Lanye spoils the mess out of her kids.
Hold on. I feel like oh my gosh, y'all need to stop. Y'all got me all backed. Like these comments are backed up.
Go ahead.
No, sir, we are not going to continue to do this anymore. Lanya said, I grew up where you show out is where you get laid out. I just don't see a problem with the topic. She says they were getting these hands. Okay, Lanya. She said, hell, they still can get them. Look, and it's funny because I always think I never had to physically discipline my children, but I tell them all the time, I'll be like, you get punched in the throat, right?
I guess it depends on the type of child.
Like, okay, mom, whatever.
I guess it depends on the type of child that you have. Because actually, out of my 4 brothers, Torrance was the most bad kid on the planet.
That's probably how he really the trauma. Like, really, if you think about
it, right.
The trauma, how we all
react
to it differently, and I think that was probably how it kind of manifested with him.
I get that. I totally get that.
Here's what people really aren't going to like. 96% of your children's behavior is a reaction to your behavior.
I believe that.
All hate mail goes directly to
I believe I don't think she
let's think about this. Like, you'll see kids out acting up in the mall, right? But then when you stop and think, you have a 2-year-old who has missed nap time, is hungry, and is stuck in a stroller, having to spend hours at the mall because their mom is shopping and ignoring what their needs.
That's true. That's true.
I think it all depends because, like, my kids never shop. I see people all the time with kids showing out. I'd be like, what the? I wish my kids would. I never, and I don't know if I just have odd kids, but they have never done stuff in public. Like.
Yeah, because they're afraid of your craziness.
I don't know what it is. I'm knocking on wood. I don't get
you made sure their needs were met.
Huh?
Xavier had a temper tantrum twice, and both times I was fully at fault because I took him out past his nap time and didn't give him a snack while we were in the mall. And so he did what any 2-year-old did, was misbehave. So we got to the car. He calmed down. I said, "What's wrong?" He goes, "I'm hungry." And there's a big yawn. I'm like, "Well, duh. You're hungry and tired, and mommy's an idiot." Because mommy was busy trying to get stuff done. Like, no parents are perfect. And you know what? When they're acting up, there's a reason for it. They don't do it for no reason. As a parent, you have to figure out what the reason is. What's going on? What's the root cause of the behavior?
Exactly. These comments are still pouring in, so we really appreciate the support, folks. Really appreciate you guys engaging.
Tammy said she says, I think Coach Dee just explained my anxiety. Was that from the whole physical discipline or the beat or the whoopings and the beat? Because we from the same family, Tammy, I know. So is that what you're referring to? Let me know. Mark says it could be not having red sports shoes and a gang hood or uniform. How parents spend their money is guidance. It's how kids ask for things also. We were taught whipping a child from slavery.
Yeah. It's the generational trauma, go back generations. Now, here's the thing. Parents are like, "Oh, well, I never got a book." I'm like, you know what? Parenting is the only thing that you have to do that most people don't ever bother to read a book about. You want to learn to drive a car, what do? You take lessons, you read the driver's handbook. You want to learn how to cook, you take lessons, you read a cookbook. Right? You got kids, you're raising actual human beings, and people are like, "Well, I know, I was just going to do what I was done." I'm like, hello?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's definitely value. I certainly read books and did other things to before I started having kids or even while I was pregnant. But it would be nice if we did have an actual instruction manual that was going to be 100% foolproof.
Oh, yeah. Well, kids are human, so there's nothing's going to be 100%.
Right. Yeah, let's get. Hold on. Lanya said we stayed getting our. Okay, Lanya. She said we stayed getting our own switch. I never let my grandkids get their own. I was always handy with a horseshoe because I wasn't so sure if my kids told them what type of mother I was. Oh my God. Okay, Lanya. She says they got away with a lot with my kids, not with me. All right, Lanya.
We need to have a talk, darling. That's not good.
Martine says, I didn't come from the go get me a switch or the, I'll put you in this world and take you out of this world crazy. I don't think I ever had to get a switch, but I mean, I did get whooped with a switch, but I didn't never have to go get my own. I wasn't that crazy. I'm like, you got to do the work if you're going to try and get me. Like, no, I'm not going to make it easy.
Right.
Well, let's think about it this way. When your parents make you go get a switch to beat yourself, what's the first thing you think you've lost?
What do you mean?
Like when your parents make you go get a switch to hit you with, what have you lost that you had for your parents prior to that?
I mean, I'm at a blank.
Trust in keeping you safe. Because you can no longer trust to keep your parents safe because your parent is now the aggressor.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Wow. Okay. I didn't think about that.
Let's get down to the ancestral trauma and the symptoms of it, so these folks could actually see exactly if they've been down that trauma path.
I just want to say it's not me. I know there's still a ton of comments out there that I haven't gotten to. So you see, he just switched the whole thing. I'm
trying to direct it back to the trauma.
I know, but it's obviously going to go to a part 2, sir. And without the viewers and their engagement, it doesn't really matter, right? So
get to the viewers. That's fine.
I'm just saying. So we've got a Facebook user, so I don't know who this is just yet. They said, I'm glad someone understands what spare the rod, spoil the child means. Physical discipline isn't effective with children. I feel it releases cortisol to the brain, which clouds memory of the consequences. I try more of a real life approach of what if you act this way, what would happen to you as an adult.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what actually works better instead of tapping or hitting: natural consequences. So, for instance, they throw a toy or something. They lose that toy. That toy is taken away for an extended period of time. Like they're playing on a video game. You take that video game away for an extended period of time. That's a natural consequence to the behavior. Because what happens is you'll have little kids who will have short memory spans. So you're going to punish them for a behavior they did while they're out, and they have no recollection of what that behavior was. They no longer remember what they did. But if you have a conversation with them on the spot, they will understand when you get eye to eye, and you have to get eye to eye with them, and you communicate with them what is going on that is not acceptable. They will understand that better than waiting 3 hours when they've forgotten what's going on.
Right. Let me finish up these last comments, Trent, and then you can go on, because Mark did say that we're getting bogged down on child rearing, which, yes, but all of that is part of what can create trauma. Remember, we talked about those things that happen between 0 and 7, which I think we're going to probably go into for part 2 of this. But Lanya says she's going to be calling on you, Coach Dee, when they do the show. She says, I already know you'll be reading me my rights on several occasions. She says, because I'm about that life.
Well, let's get you not about that life.
Right.
When you're not about that life is more peaceful.
That is true. Mark, I did want to make sure that I touched on Mark's response when you mentioned that go at it. And he said, Ayo, Mr. Epic, we're not going at it. Let's agree to disagree. That's also why there's no more child kings or queens except on TV and on big screens. So he's saying they're not going at it. It's just healthy debate. And
good stuff.
All right, now we can move on.
All right, so I wanted to get down to the ancestral trauma. How do we know if we have ancestral trauma? Coach Dee, give out the symptoms for the ancestral trauma. So some of these folks could actually still be dealing with trauma and don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
Define ancestral trauma, please, for the viewers.
So I'll stick to the Black community because that's the community I know most. Higher likelihood of chronic diseases and cancer. Often the solution includes a better diet or accompanying exercise. Think about the foods that we were allowed during slavery that still passed down today. Like we were given the leftovers. So for instance, chitlins. Right. That is not considered the best meats of the animal. That's the leftovers. So that's a food passed down from slavery days that now is like one of the foods that we shouldn't be eating because they're high in sodium, high in fat, the stuff that cause heart disease and high blood pressure. Right. Which are chronic illnesses within the Black community. And there's then you have like diabetes, substance abuse disorders, whether it's smoking, drinking, gambling, food addiction, shopping addictions, anything like that. Poor sleep habits, depression and anxiety. And like then you have, there's a lot of shame, low self-esteem, dissociation, insomnia. Correct. Hypervigilance is another one where people are always on edge. Correct. Difficulty in regulating aggression. Right. Difficulty in relationships and attachments.
Exactly. And the reason why I brought that up, because a lot of folks could actually truly still be walking through a trauma and not even know it. Yeah. Living everyday life, still walking through a trauma, passing it on. So there is such a thing as ancestral trauma.
Yeah. Well, think about all the, I call it trauma porn. You'll see on YouTube and Facebook about people misbehaving. And then people will look at that and they'll laugh, and then they don't realize what's going on in the background behind that. People are fighting because they don't know how to regulate their emotions. They don't know how to have conversations. They know anger because that's all they've seen. So they are mimicking the behaviors that they've seen in front of them. So that's why you'll see a lot of the fights, the lack of caring about the lives of other people. Right. Because nobody's cared about them. So why would they care about other people?
Exactly. Let's spend the last 5 minutes with the folks in the comments section, because they've been. I don't want people jumping down on Shann. That's truly was.
Oh no, because they can clearly see I have been trying to fight and advocate for them. So my hands is clean. I'm just saying. Yeah. So Mark had a part 2 to his comment about, I guess some of the things we don't necessarily teach our children about that can create trauma. And what did he say? He said not learning credit building and bill paying and stressing the need to pay what you owe and savings. That's true.
That's true. That's very true.
So Martine said they were given a lot of scraps to eat, and she said lots of us still eat that stuff. Lanye said, I just seen a post about chitlins. They are high as hell right now, a straight delicacy. They are expensive. Like there's a soul food chain here called
Right.
They're like $30 for like a little thing.
You know why? And I get on Lanya about this as well. She doesn't watch the news. Right now, that those factories were closed down for 2 years. Over 2 years, those factories were closed down. That's actually processing this stuff. That's why the pig lips and all the pig feet and all this other stuff is high. I mean, to my sky high.
Yeah,
I was telling my brother, he was looking like for a jar of pig lips. He was like, man, I spent $30 for that. Yeah, of course, because pickled pig lips and all that stuff. And I was like, those factories been closed for like 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why would you eat the lips of a pig?
They're pickled.
Do you eat
it goes back?
No, I don't do it. I don't do it anymore.
Oh Lord, can we get rid of that part of the ancestral trauma? It's nasty.
As long as you know why we ate those foods, and that's fine.
I mean, I know why, but we can eat much better now, and it's not healthy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Our Facebook user says that makes a lot of sense. I'll try. They'll try that. I want to get to the point. I'm not just being mean, but I want them to be responsible adults. He says I will try the misuse of items to cause them to lose certain things. So what I do with my kids, and I think it's super simple, cut the cell phone off. Because that's what I do, right?
And that's a natural consequence.
Exactly. Hey, Facebook user, we really appreciate you actually tuning in and to the conversation with Trent and Friends. Can you identify yourself so we'll know exactly who you are so we can actually address you appropriately? We appreciate the comments and appreciate your engagement.
Yeah.
But think about things like my mother's family were poor growing up. My mother would have a fit if we didn't have potatoes in the house.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
like even to this day, I get anxious if there's not potatoes in the house because that's a general passed down. Because remember, my mother's family's Irish, so we always had the potato famine and moved to Newfoundland and had to live off the ground. So a potato was a staple that could survive the winter and feed you. So if you didn't have money and you had potatoes, you could still eat.
Exactly. So what part of that trauma that you hate lobster? Which part of that for you that this woman hates lobster? No,
I don't. I will not pay for lobster because I grew up getting lobster out of the water.
Right. A Newfoundland.
Right. Yeah. Because when you grow up living off the land, then why would I pay market rate for lobster when I know when I go home I can get it fresh right out of the water?
Right.
Right.
Hey Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Oh, that's Matt from the group.
Yes,
appreciate that, Matt. Appreciate that, brother.
Here's another generational trauma that people don't realize. How many people, when they went grocery shopping for the very first time when they left home, didn't know what they want to eat? Because they didn't know what they like.
Oh, I know what I like, but I'm different. I'm a foodie, and I've been cooking and doing stuff since I was.
But people who have never been given that choice will go into a grocery store completely lost because they've never had the option to choose what they want to eat.
Okay, I think I did okay with my kids because they do real good.
So the biggest part with generational trauma is the emotional regulation and the coping skills. Because
dig a little deeper for the folks in the back.
So coping skills, if something goes wrong, they'll immediately go into a panic mode versus trying to figure out the problem first because you go into flight or fight.
That can be me sometimes. I'll admit it.
Because, like, for instance, if you had issues in your home where it was traumatic, there wasn't enough money, so the parents would try to figure out the bills and what could be paid and what couldn't be paid. Maybe your lights got shut off, maybe your water got shut off, maybe your food got shut off. So when it comes to they getting paid, they will panic if everything is not paid on time specifically because they have those memories in their head about what happens when it doesn't get paid.
Oh my God. Okay. I just figured some other stuff out. Okay.
But when I talk about the root causes, it goes back. People don't realize what you see when you're younger is why you can't regulate. You can't cope. you're anxious, you're depressed, you can't sleep, your eating is affected, your spending is affected, your relationships with other people. This is all trauma from generations that your parents have passed down from their parents.
Yeah, I think I need a session, Coach D. I think
we're at the top of the hour here. Our time is up here, but Shannon was actually correct that this will go into a part 2. So we'll actually pick up on what Dee just said.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that? That'll be the topic for next week.
We'll go where how the traumas affect you as an adult, like your coping skills, your emotional regulation, relationships, abuse of different substances. We'll go from how these traumas affect how you are now as a person.
Look here, they gonna get all this therapy for like $6.99 a month.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm
just saying.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time is you can talk about what's going on all the time until you get back to the root cause. You have to dig until you find why that's happening.
Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, we are. Absolutely.
And here in the conversation, folks, we talk about getting to the meat and potatoes. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is how we get to the point of our adulthood. We're back in our adults now. And a ton of things that happened in my past from the age of 4 affect me as an adult.
Yep.
And
relationships is a biggie. So how about next week? Do you want to focus on relationships? How trauma affects?
Yes, but we still have to get to the 0 through to 7 thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, we may have to have a couple more shows because this is this is a topic that encompasses a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So it could take 2 or 3 shows. But I do want to say, so I hope Lanya, I don't know if you were thinking that I didn't know what chitlins are, but yes, I do know what they are, the pig intestines, and no, I don't eat them. I did have family that ate them as I was growing up. I tried them once as a child and never.
For the record, I want you guys to know, for the record, Lanya is a horrible eater. We always debating back and forth with the whole.
Everybody don't just eat chicken and vegetables or fish and vegetables like you.
And you didn't eat them all like that either until you got sick.
Right, exactly.
No, hold on, Dee. Wait a minute.
Hold
on a second. No, wait a minute. Now, hold on a second, Dee. Every time you crossed that border, you had a seafood meal. Knock it off. Fish, vegetables, and whatever.
Dessert.
And exactly.
Because you were always cooking the desserts.
Yeah, you didn't have any problem eating it, sir.
Oh, wait a minute. What are we talking about now?
I bake. My specialty.
Okay.
There you go.
No. Get your mind out of butter.
No, sorry. I mean, we all 21 and older, I would think. I mean,
no, my specialty is desserts.
Okay.
Like I make like galacto boricchio, carabiatis, Greek spreets. I'm my specialty. My stepdad's Greek, so I used to make them all the time for him.
Right. But I've been eating chicken and fish for a ton of years, so.
Ew. Save the comments. Okay. Yes, Tammy, I'm like you. I can be the panicker at times, and then I kind of have to calm down.
Yeah.
And Martine says the fact that lots of us are still single is from trauma. Really, I don't know if I'm gonna claim that line yet.
Hey, I love that. But that's true though. Honestly, that could be possibly true because I'm
dive into it because it could be trauma from bad relationships that we.
Yeah, but think about it. Think about it, right? Think about this. We're gonna break it down, and then we'll get out of here. But think about this, right? I'm actually single now, right? But all of that stuff started with me from me despising the man that I admired most. Again, I despised the man that I admired most, and I became that man that I hated.
Yeah.
Because we mimic what we grew up with.
Exactly. And so Martina's onto something there. I totally agree.
Oh yeah. And we will get to it. You will see.
Yeah.
What we'll do is
we might get you a boo out of this, honey.
Yeah.
Lanya, okay, we're gonna have to end on that. Lanya say, "Who the hell want rice cakes?" She said, "Bland food, take it down the street and dump it." Okay, she gonna be my kind of people. That's why I ain't doing them rice cakes.
She is. I'm telling you, you're gonna love her. She's wonderful. She's wonderful. She's definitely wonderful. But for the folks that are actually tuned in and always supporting us, really appreciate that. As we actually transition to the platform, Taylor Kennedy TV, we really appreciate that. And you guys got to get that access still free and we're still extending it, but it's going to cost folks coming on and subscribing as we move everything over to the platform. So it'll be $6.99 a month to get that trauma talk, to get them cake talk, to get the bake talk, to get all of the medical fitness for myself and the yoga and all that stuff. $6.99 a month. But you guys, for the faithfuls, they're going to get it for free. Like Martine, Mark, Tammy, all those folks, they'll get it for a while for free.
Oh, so
everybody else, say again that?
I'm going to get to do some cake talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully I can get some free cookies out of this. So
I don't know. Look, Martine says she's with the $6.99. That's what I'm talking about.
It's good stuff. But Martine, but for not right now, I'm actually sending you guys out private links. So you guys have been riding with us, man. We really appreciate it. And it's only fair that it's only fitting that you guys get to ride a little bit more for free. And these other guys coming in, the price of business have gone up. So.
Okay, I'm gonna need y'all to stop with the comments because I gotta end we gotta end the show now. So this is it. Mark is always coming to your rescue. He says he's never known Mr. Epic cooking from the rooter to the tutor. Even having dinner, we always ate from the best side of the menu. Whatever.
Oh, my man.
Martine says she's praying that she meets a man that she can spend the rest of her life with soon. And you will both eat very well, Madame.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to meet you either, Lanye. So yeah, we'll figure it out. But thank you so much. The invite was extended to me, so I was made aware of it.
Absolutely. I tell folks, I'll be over in Illinois on the 26th of October through the 30th for the grand opening, the second grand opening of Cubs Couch over in Illinois, and Your Family Thrift Store over in Illinois, where Cubs Giving Hands is going to be giving out free coats to the community and free meals and all that good stuff. So Cubs Giving Hands, Lanye Blanks, the founder, and all that good stuff, will be there putting our hands in the community. Illinois and St. Louis.
All right, make sure you give Lanye a book. And have you sent Martine her stuff?
Yeah, Martine's stuff is on the way. It's on the way. Coming straight from the press. No, honestly, it's coming straight from the press.
Okay. All right. Make sure you take care of Lanye too.
Well, Lanye, the books was here when Lanye showed up.
Then, sir, you should have thought about making sure that the person that was hosting you was getting a book.
You know, with this condition, I tend to.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you. What's today? Sunday. So we'll see everybody. No, wait. Today's Sunday. Yeah. So we'll see everybody on Wednesday.
Okay.
So you guys on Wednesday with part 2.
I like when you're in the zone. I like when you're in the zone.
What would you say, Dee?
So I have a learning point for today.
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. Teach me mama. Go ahead.
You can't fix the now till you find out the then, the why.
Okay.
You can't fix the now till you find out the why, and we'll move on that on Wednesday. Love you guys.
That's it. That's the only one we need.
That's the only one we need.
Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
You guys be epic.
Bye.
Conversations with Trent in conjunction with Taylor Kennedy Media and your radio network would like to thank you for calling in and listening to tonight's episode. We hope that tonight's conversation offended you just enough to turn your mirror inward, to come back for more. So until next week's conversation, be epic.